Morning, everyone. Maxime Bernier is tweeting, quote, Canada is becoming an increasingly divided and dysfunctional country, and the re-election of the Liberals will make things even worse. The principles and policies of the People's Party of Canada are more relevant than ever. So let me make this clear. We're here to stay. And so there were a lot of people who were looking forward to this tweet or were wondering if this tweet was going to come at all. Mr. Bernier has been very quiet on Twitter since the election, since the People's Party didn't win one seat, including mine and including his. So, I mean, things happen, right? And people were wondering. Wonder no longer. The answer is here. And, well, the People's Party will be a factor in the next election, whether you like it or not. So, I mean, hey, that's how life goes. Here is an interesting story just within the context of what I've been talking about over the last several months. CP24 is reporting man facing over 50 charges in connection with sexual assault case. A suspect facing more than 50 charges in connection with a sexual assault investigation has been arrested by Toronto police. Few details about the investigation have been released, but police say they arrested a suspect identified as 52-year-old Mohammed Nafail Hadi Mohammed on October 29th. After along being charged with 14 counts of sexual assault, he is also facing 14 counts of sexual exploitation of a young person, 12 counts of sexual interference with a person under the age of 14, 6 counts of corrupting a child through sexual immorality, 3 counts of unlawfully engaging in anal intercourse, 3 counts of sexually touching a minor, and 2 counts of forcible confinement. Mohammed is due in court today, and a publication ban is in place. Police say they believe there are other victims and are asking anyone with information about the case to contact police or Crime Stoppers anonymously. Blah, blah, blah. Link is in the description if you've heard of anything about him. But this is a similar pattern. I wonder why the publication ban is in place. I've noticed publication bans across a lot of interesting stories that do get reported, but then just like this, like here's some horrifying details, and then I can't tell you anymore because a publication ban is in place. Wild, right? And who knows when they get removed? It could be years later, right? The Danforth shooting publication ban was lifted last year? Anyway, it seems arbitrary to me, but I'm watching from the sidelines. So seems arbitrary. Here's J.J. McCullough, and I think he's a New York Times columnist, or no, Washington Post. Yeah, weekly columnist for the Washington Post, and he's got a YouTube channel. Apparently he's interested in Canada. But I've seen this a lot, and the news media has been asking Scheer if he thinks that homosexuality is a sin. And that's a loaded question, and it's purposely a loaded question. And every time I've watched it, I've thought this is just not unfair, but stacked in a way that is not stacked for other leaders. And Mr. McCullough here gets it in a way that, or puts it together much better than I could. And he's responding to Robin Urbach. Robin's a CBC reporter, and she says, Trudeau, Singh, May aren't getting questions about their views on gay marriage because their actions have effectively answered them. There is no ambiguity. Scheer, on the other hand, dodges straightforward questions. That's why he keeps getting them. McCulloch says, Scheer was asked if he thinks homosexuality is a sin, which is a theological question that has nothing to do with gay marriage or public policy more broadly. I do not recall any of the left-wing leaders being asked sensationalistic questions about the doctrines of their faiths. Right. Nobody's asking Trudeau about a sin with regard to pro-life or abortion or pro-choice or anything to that effect. So it's very interesting. It's stacked in a way that is not stacked for anybody else. And it's everybody on the right. It's not just Scheer, but I'm using Scheer as the best example right now. It was Bernier all through the election with the stacked of course you're racist, but, right? And so that necessitates a response in our society, which is, I mean, ridiculous, because starting everything with I'm not racist is just stupid. Just stupid. Anyway, here's Spencer Fernando moving on, and he says, as Alberta struggles, Quebec's government, which got $12 billion in transfer payments, to run $1.4 billion surplus and increase payments to families. Isn't that nice? Anyone want to move to Quebec temporarily? While Alberta and much of Western Canada struggle economically, the Quebec government is running a budget surplus. According to BNN Bloomberg, quote, Quebec's fall economic update is offering more money for families, a reduction in hospital parking fees, and a return to a single rate for the province's subsidized daycare spots. Finance Minister Eric Girard said Thursday the province should finish the 2019-2020 fiscal year with a $1.4 billion surplus, fueled by a 2.4% increase in GDP in 2019. Of course, that last line is somewhat misleading. Quebec politicians aren't running a surplus because their GDP went up. They're running a surplus because they received about $12 billion in transfer payments yearly. And as we know, a huge proportion of those transfer payments are funded by Alberta. Alberta is struggling with their budget, having to make difficult choices in tough economic times, at the same time as Quebec's government is offering more benefits. In fact, nearly 700,000 families in Quebec are going to get $779 every year in additional benefits. There's a bit more to that. The link is in the description if you want to check that out. And the last story for today is one that I missed on the 5th. It was a big story. I marked it, but there's been other stories that pop up, and I can't get to everything. And I mean, sometimes rainbow poppies just take up all the air in the room, right? It's insane. Okay, here's CTV News reporting China to resume importing beef and pork from Canada. Yeah, this was a big hit when China stopped importing, and the soy too, but the soy is still a no-go, but the pork and the beef are going. Here's CTV News. China has agreed to allow Canadian meat products into the country, ending a 5-month suspension. China halted the importation of Canadian beef and pork in June, saying some Canadian meat had tested positive for ractopamine, an additive that is banned in China and was sent over with forged inspection certificates. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted the news Tuesday afternoon, calling it good news for Canadian farmers. That's a rare time that I'll agree with Justin Trudeau. It is good news for Canadian farmers. Back to the article. China is one of Canada's largest export markets for pork and beef. More than $500 million worth of Canadian pork and nearly $100 million worth of Canadian beef were sent to China in 2018, representing the second and fifth largest markets, respectively, for those meats. Scrolling down, Guy Saint-Jacques, a former Canadian ambassador to China, says China's decision may have less to do with a thaw in relations than with food supply issues. China is the world's largest pork producer, but its herds have been devastated by an outbreak of African swine fever. Approximately 1.2 million Chinese pigs have been killed since August 2018 in an attempt to contain the disease. The decline in supply has caused the price of pork in China to nearly double over the past year, even as the country has increased its imports from Europe and Brazil. I think it's mostly self-interest, Saint-Jacques told CTV's Power Play. Quote, of course, it helps to have ambassadors in both places, but let's recall that the Chinese have been very clear that the relationship cannot get back to normal unless we return Ms. Meng. The leadership in Beijing was faced with most likely a lot of pressure from Chinese consumers. 1.4 billion Chinese consumers that were complaining that the price of pork had increased by 70 to 100%. Wow, that's a huge increase. Kind of like our electricity prices increase. Back to the article. The federal government has to make a decision on whether it will allow Huawei to participate in 5G development in Canada, he said. We have been warned if they are not allowed, there will be further measures taken against Canada. For that reason, it's important for the federal government to try and get as much support from allies. Right, because without the support from the allies, well, we're in even worse diplomatic trouble. So that's kind of a sampling of what's going on around Canadian politics. I mean, more of the same. And what would you expect? We elected a parliament of basically more of the same. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful